state act to complement existing state actors when it has to do with security, security challenges in Kaduna State and the country generally. It therefore came up with an empirical work based in how as the focal point to represent Kaduna North. I don't know how it's the cow already, but you are sure it is governed by safety more about that. But he studied in cow and his objectives were basically, or the aim was basically to assess the role of parties. And he came up with a number of objectives which guided him in his study. Now, at the end of the day, he was able to, the methodology, I didn't quite get it clear, but I just had the methodology actually. He directed a number of the public and came up with a number of recommendations or findings. And one of the findings is that indeed, Heartbeat has improved the security situation in Kaduna, not particularly in Kawa. Reduce snatching of phones, so that insecurities in the area, they've also been able to carry along members of the public in the operation, and they also patrol markets, Arewa, mentioned here, so they patrol, and their mere presence is enough to reduce the commission of crime or the immediate apprehension of those who are attempted to commit crime. However, you will see a lot of challenges, and these challenges are not very different from the conventional security network like the police, which is the lead security agency when it comes to crime control. Challenges included, of course, inadequate manpower, lack of equipment, funding, welfare matters, which are quite different from what our obvious security networks face. And therefore, recommended, of course, increase in funding, increase in so that they can take care of the more equipment. We also talk about the issues of political interference, which is also not quite new. In fact, we're going to be talking about when it comes to issues of state police, as also look at the issue of civil police. I'm going to say some comments about the network. But then the issue of political interference, rivalry is also one thing that is very clear. These complementary agencies are established so that they can work together, collaborate. But, I mean, the findings have shown, success have shown that indeed they are more to rivalry than collaboration. And it's not very when you found not very different problem. We also talk about issues of training. They need to train. And you mentioned that it's only the commander that is really trained, others need to train so that they can be abreast with current developments. We therefore concluded, indeed, the Heartbeat has succeeded in reducing the incidences of insecurity, particularly in the study area. And their mere presence has also been able to reduce the condition of crime in these areas. With that brief summary, I want to add what the discusser will do justice to the paper. Thank you very much. Prof.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, very senior colleague of ours, our ancestor. I feel honored to be seated beside you to discuss this very, very important issue. And my mentor, Prof. Sani, the director, thank you very much. It's always refreshing to gather in an academic forum like this. Very senior professors here present, colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and the presenter. I think it's a very, very interesting issue that you have come up with, and I find your paper very, very interesting for three major reasons. First and foremost, you all agree with me here that once we gather in any academic environment to discuss issues of security or criminality, the tendency most of the time is that we focus on what I may call macro level challenges, issues of banditry, terrorism. They are issues that are constantly being debated, even as we gather here today in Nigeria. But equally important are this kind of micro level security or criminality that we have to deal with in most of our cities. I'm happy you mentioned that incident about the lieutenant colonel that was stabbed, I think earlier this year in Kaun. It was a very disturbing incident. I remember, if a lieutenant colonel could be stabbed in broad daylight, and if you have been around Kaun recently, particularly in Libya, and you see the number of able-bodied young men just loitering around, and it's not peculiar to Kaun alone. Several major cities, you discover that we have this army of young, able-bodied men just loitering around doing nothing. It's a serious issue. So it's a very, very topical issue that we are discussing. And I want to really commend you for identifying this issue, particularly cow that we are even talking about. And then secondly, I also noticed that your paper actually had a lot of primary data. You conducted extensive interviews. This is also very, very commendable. You talk to not just members of the vigilante groups, members of cadres, but several traditional rulers, and so on and so forth. Part of the importance of adopting this approach is that the paper may likely, or should, in fact, I want to encourage that it should have policy implications. Can you come up, for instance, after this presentation with a policy brief that perhaps with the director you can submit to the Kaduna State government? I think if we're able to do that, then we will have achieved a significant feat by this academic exercise here. So I really want to commend you, for taking the initiative to focus on this issue. But of course, like every academic exercise, there's always room for improvement and areas that I think if we're able to focus on, we are going to add value to the paper. So first and foremost, the major observation that I would like to make is that as a Center for Historical Documentation and as a historian yourself, I thought that the paper, yes, was going to, make efforts to historicize this issue of vigilantism, as it obtains not just in Nigeria or even Kaduna State in particular. You actually try to look at the history of the phenomenon in Kaduna State, how it emerged, from the kind of security challenges and the abuses that were associated with the informal or unregulated vigilante groups. You understand? But before the advent or the emergence of formal security outfits, police systems, for instance, how did these vigilante groups exist? What's the history? And even in the case of Nigeria, if you look from the 1980s in particular, there is a very, very dominant perspective that most of the vigilante groups that we have actually emerge within the context of most of the economic challenges that we have, particularly from the 1980s. You understand? In essence, where the state has failed and they created a gap, most of these groups have emerged to fill that gap. If you are able to clearly bring that out, I think it will add value to the paper. And then, secondly, another major issue that I think we need to look at is, as maybe I may be a little bit biased here as a social scientist, I thought there was going to be a theoretical framework, but even from a historical perspective, I didn't hear you say anything about that. It will help us to be grounded if you can provide a theoretical content. There are several theories that one may consider. We have, for instance, the social control theory. We have retreat theories. We have broken windows theories. Even community policing. Prof talked about state police, which is a very topical issue that has continued to generate debate and controversy. Within the framework of community policing, what theoretical insights, can we get, from looking at the situation of all these things that is going on around the operations of vigilante groups in Kaduna. Nothing was said on that, and I think that if you're able to do that, you add value to the work. Then another major issue that I observed is with regard to the methodology. While you were doing the presentation, you actually gave us a feel of the methodological approach that was adopted. But in the work itself, I thought there was going to be a section where you are going to dedicate towards telling us the methodology. Are you adopting a historical approach, for instance? In your abstract, somewhere in the abstract, I noticed you also mentioned that you adopted a mixed method, but this was not visible in the paper itself. It will have been very interesting to see statistical evidence to suggest that there is actually a reduction in crime in Kawo, as you claimed in the paper. Because, of course, I want to believe that with the emergence of these cadres, since their work is supposed to complement the activities of the Nigerian police, there should be some level of documentation. How many criminals, for instance, have they been able to identify and hand over to the police? How many have been prosecuted? You know, and what did the record? What was the record even before the emergence of cadres? This will have been able to, make whatever conclusion or argument you are going to make stronger. If we can provide that kind of statistical record, I think it will really, really justify that mixed approach that you said you have adopted, and also provide a verifiable basis for most of your claims. So I think there's a need to look at that again. Of course, related to that is the issue of sampling. How did you select your respondents? There's a need to give one or two comments on that. Let's state very, very clearly who these people are. Of course, since it's a case study, we know that most of the sampling technique that you probably adopted was purposive sampling. But at least let it be stated. Let's know that this is the approach you adopted, and then you identify key informants, that possess the information that you require for this study, and interview them. And then in terms of the analysis also, I talked about how quantitative data will improve the quality of the analysis. As it is now, the analysis is essentially descriptive. You understand? Which analytical approach have you adopted? You understand? You focus so much on anecdotal evidence, almost to the point that the study appears to be almost like a perception survey. What key informants feel about the operation of cadres. If you actually want to provide study, that can inform policy making in terms of mitigating this kind of criminal activity, then we must go beyond these anecdotes. What does the statistics really tell us? You understand? We need to engage with these views and these perceptions of the work. In fact, when I was actually reading the paper, in some places, I almost thought that you were a consultant prof for cadres. So so perhaps if we're able to engage, if we're able to provide some kind of statistical data just to see how we're able to triangulate with the qualitative data that we have gathered for the study, is definitely going to add value. Then again, another important observation that I made in the paper is the issue of some statements that appear to be rather impressionistic and unsubstantiated. When we say that, and there are so many in the paper, when we say, for instance, that crime rates have reduced, what exactly are we talking about? We need statistics. When we say cadres has contributed to the reduction of petty crime, have we been able to identify this kind of petty crimes? What are the major forms of petty crime, for instance, that we find in the Kawo area? What are the key major forms of interventions that we know with cadres? You rightly mentioned, for instance, issues of joint patrol, issues of intelligence gathering, and so on and so forth. So how has joint patrol, for instance, effectively brought, the issue of criminality within Kawo area, to a minimal level? And then the issue of intelligence gathering, what are some of the major experiences? Has there been any incidents, for instance, where the timely intervention of cadres, has been able to forestall the outbreak of any major issue? Beyond just making general claims, that cadres has played role in generating intelligence, we want to see, some kind of evidence to actually support this claim. So I think if we are able to do that, it's going to add value to the paper. And then again, the issue of the establishment of cadres, for instance, you talked about the law establishing cadres. It is now state-backed and has become institutionalized. But the key issue now is that how effective, and this is even related to one of the recommendations that you made, particularly with regard to funding. If by creating a law that accounts for the emergence or the institutionalization of cadres, the state has not been able to effectively fund this organization, how effective do you think it can be? There is a need to actually interrogate these issues clearly, and let's see how they can be empowered to ensure that they deal with this very, very important issue that has to do with criminality in Kawo area. Then there are several other issues, that I observed with regard to conceptualization. For instance, when you talked about at a point you were talking about vigilantism and vigilante cadres as a vigilante group, as if they were different phenomenon. Perhaps to my understanding, I think the major difference between the earlier vigilante groups that existed before cadres was the fact that they were not recognized by law. They were essentially community organizations that were not recognized by law. So they may be the same. The only difference, I think, being that one has been formalized and recognized by law. So we need to at least put that in proper context. And then, of course, the issue of crime mitigation. When you talk of crime mitigation also, what exactly are you talking about? How, for instance, does this concept of crime mitigation differ from issues of crime prevention, crime control, crime reduction, crime management, and several other issues? There is a whole lot of literature in this regard, and then perhaps if we interrogate these issues clearly, we'll understand clearly what you mean by crime mitigation. Then again, there are some brief inconsistencies which I think need to be looked into. The paper, for instance, states that vigilante groups exist in all 774 local government areas within the state. Yet, no form of evidence or kind of reference to this claim is provided. If we have that, it will really help. And then another important point that was made again, which I think we need to look at, is the issue of vigilante. There's somewhere in the paper where you noted that vigilantism seemed to have disappeared after the establishment of cadres. I'm not sure if this is really the case, because we still find several other vigilante groups that exist particularly in remote areas, even outside the existence of cadres. Yes. So these issues, if you are able to look at that, I think it will add value to the paper. There is a brief template here that I was thinking maybe you want to consider, Prof. And the whole idea behind this template is like a table where, if you can, since you have clearly delimited the period or the space, the time frame covered by your study, if you can look at, for instance, the particular year, how many numbers of crimes were reported or criminal activities were reported by cadres to the Nigerian police. How many arrests, for instance, have they been able to make in 2015, in 2016, 2017, each of these years? And then the number of convictions, if we're able to get, because I believe it may be scanty, but this record will be there. If we're able to explore and get this record, it's really going to add value to the paper, and like I said earlier, it's going to provide a strong basis for whatever policy recommendation that you want to make at the end of this paper. So overall, these are just some of the major observations that I have with the paper, which I have no doubt will add value to the paper if you look at them. But like I said at the beginning, I want to commend you. I think it's really, really an interesting topic, very, very topical. particularly given the tendency to always focus on more germane or more generalized forms of insecurity that we have in the country. So if we're able to look at these issues, I have no doubt that is going to add value to the paper. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, because I know so many other people may have one or two things to say, let me stop here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Prof.
Well, I really understand. I mean, that's what I do. Yes, thanks for your critique and your attempt to interrogate many of the issues of the paper. I'm not surprised. Me, who was where we come from, I expected it anyway. Mr. Presenter, you know, we were supposed to hear more of this passion.
Yes.
But there are many of them around here. But then, let me try to make a distinction between vigilante and vigilante services. The Kaduna State Government Vigilance Service or vigilante is essentially there's a state, there is what called state actors and non-state actors.
Yes.
In our system here, vigilantism is actually a non-state act, and there are various is in our various communities. We have this neighborhood watch. We settle, we pay money for their house security. The vigilance service is actually a state actor
Yes.
complementing the service of other state actors like the civil defense, the Nigerian police, the DSS and others. And that is what Man and Arewa set up, a complementary state actor to help also take care of the security situation of Kaduna State. So we were going to make comments positive in this light. I guess that clears
Yeah.
all the things we have.
Yes.
But the other issues I will come up when I went to listened to my colleagues here. I want to open the floor for members of participants in this seminar to make comments. Please feel free to make comments, but also make sure you don't take too much time because I'm sure as many as are here want to make comments. So please be considerate. Thank you very much. You have someone who can carry the mic around? Okay, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Professor Ashiru. It's a very nice and very interesting. And I like the comments made by the discussants. We agree on several things, but there's one area. Let me start with our diabetes. And that is where my point of entry for this conversation. For me, how is true micro a study? I do not attend concentration on how we will want, if you attend how is very urban, how is not a pick out, let's say, of working. How does not compare to Barnawa? I hope you understand. So, how is too limited for me? Because, like discussant said, we need to come up with something that can give us guidance on how we can develop a policy paper on urban violence in Kaduna State, for example. And the study of how it was much. Actually, how is not even very heterogeneous as a settlement. You know, my own understanding of how is mostly a northern community, primarily Hausa, Fulani, mostly Muslim. You know, it's not a function of the city of the yeah, in terms of diversity, in terms of urban mix, you know, and in terms of the type of crimes. You know, the type of crime and criminality in how unemployed young persons, drug induced, phone snatching, you know, it's not a potato of Kaduna at all. That's not about Kaduna. About Kaduna is more than that. So for me, the least we could do is to give us a study of urban Kaduna, greater Kaduna, you know, to be representative. So I think we should do a little more. You already have an idea of how look at other areas of Kaduna, maybe comparatively, you know, at least where the discover something in terms of your sampling frame, you know, and in terms of your choice of informants, key or most informants. So the lessons for Kaduna has not come out clearly, and it's still because it is now. If you have done an over Kaduna thing, you can clearly now extrapolate it to lessons for Kaduna. Because of course, even if you do over Kaduna, it's not going to be repetitive of, let's say, the bandwidth technology and the local government. But at least we can talk about violence in Kaduna. Both the discussion and the chairman talked about vigilantism. For me, there is no confusion in terms of vigilante and vigilantism. Whatever you think of the governor of Kaduna who established that like this, I think that's what we refer is not stupid. What he tried to do was to manage the vigilante groups because they had clearly gone out of control in places like Zamfara and Katsina and added to the instability in those places. So, having noticed the role of vigilante groups in fueling food security in those states, he decided to tame the monster quite early before it goes out of control. So, what this is, let's keep some form, let's control. And it didn't take much for you to control. Go to the House Assembly, pass a law, appoint a retired police commissioner, as we said, and he didn't even give them money. Work with the police. So, subsume them under the police. So he was it's more for control actually, rather than anything else. So vigilantism is a worldwide phenomenon. In fact, in Nigeria, we don't even have vigilantism. Go to Colombia. Well, at some point, the vigilante groups had gone beyond the control of the state. And they became actually the state and were, more powerful than the established security agencies. Look at what's happening in Sudan. The rapid support process was a vigilante group brought up by the military regime that came back to fight the same military regime with the backing of some foreign forces. So, vigilantism, if not managed, can really go out of control. It's a double-edged sword. In limited quantity, community policing, it can help. But when it goes out of control, it can really, really break up. So I think that now was wise in taming that monster. Now, I like your recommendations. You ask for more personnel, better funding, better equipment for the 10 years. Now my question simply is, what happens if you do all of this to the Nigerian police? Can't they perform? You keep you recruit more police people. Give them better funding, give them better welfare, give them more equipment. That's the UN regulation requirement for police is 1 to 4,000. 1 to 400, and Nigeria is like 1 to several thousand. So this recommendation of Gadbis, if you do to the police, then you will not require Gadbis again because you are not battling the problem of the Nigerian police. So, on the whole, I like the paper, it's very good. But please expand the scope so that we can have or an Arewa house paper to which we can, now start talking. Not only with the state government, but also with the governments of the states like Kaduna, Zamfara, Sokoto, and others where say, oh, look, this is what has happened in Kaduna, and it might also work for you. Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, my director, my respected senior colleagues, Mr. Gary, Mr. Kahemba, many others that are here present. Mine is very smooth. First of all, I extend my congratulations and sincere appreciation to the director, taking this center reality. We really thank you for this wonderful effort. To the presenter, I say it's a thank you for this wonderful presentation. And then, just be part of Arewa House since it's undergraduate days when he was conducting his research, when he was studying at Arewa Hospital. So I believe this is one of the products of his research and I'm able to produce. Lastly, I have some few comments to make, which I have already highlighted. I will just hand them over to the presenter so that I believe some of these comments will help to add value to the paper. Thank you God very much for your job well done. And I believe when we invite you next time, you will maybe accept our invitation and come and present a much more better paper than this one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Prof, I'm speaking as a lead, not as a director. And besides, I'm not even the chair. So, thank you very much. Let me start by also commending your efforts. It takes a big heart, given the challenges we are facing, daily challenges, to even sit down and write one or two things. I think we really need to commend you for that. Again, I also commend you on the fact that this is actually an empirical work, not gada-gada claiming that you did something, but then this is an empirical work containing real field work that you used. That being said, like our ancestors said, no work is perfect, so there's always room for improvement. So let me start with the comment made by Professor Kiari, whether the law creating this card base has actually controlled their behavior or not. Now I'm wondering, given the nature that you even reported, nature, number, and frequency of human rights abuses, have they actually been controlled? If we compare what they were doing before the establishment of the law and what is currently on board now, have they actually been controlled? Maybe it's something you may help us answer. But you see, I'm also interested in one revelation that you made. All this while, I thought these people were paid. Honestly, I thought they were paid. This is a shocking revelation, because if you don't pay them, then it holds the potential of them using that very uniform to pay themselves. So it's actually a shocking revelation, and I think this is an entry point where your paper would add more value to the discourse on security things. So I think you need to look at that angle more critically, even if it means coming up with another paper, right? Something in the line of maybe a vigilante that has been encouraged to pay itself, and the various means it has been using in paying itself. I think it will make an interesting read. Yeah, again, I was wondering, given what you discovered, how does your paper now fit into the discourse on state policing? Because basically what we see could be Kadbis, it could be the one in Kano, and several other places. They are beginning to give us an inkling into what the likelihood would be when a state decides to create its own police. You know, they are in the hands of the executive, so he could do whatever he or she pleases to do with it. And we have reference, you know, of the potential of abuse from studies in the First Republic, where regional governments had their police. As a matter of fact, in the literature, it's even been suggested that even native authorities had their own police. And how did they use it? Because the literature told us that the NPC government was able to use its police to deal ruthlessly with any opposition. In fact, even in the election, it has been used where people lost election at the lower level. They were able to enhance them and take them to upper level to declare them as victorious. So these are the potential dangers for state policing. So I was thinking maybe your paper could equally fit into the discourse on state policing that you need to reflect on. And again, like my colleague said, possibly because we have been also influenced by the social science background, any claim you make of success or otherwise needs to be backed up with statistics. I heard you speaking that Cadbury's has been able to reduce crime by 80%. And then I was wondering, is it heavenly revelation that you are telling us? Or you have some statistics to back up this claim? Because if they have been able to reduce crime by 80%, honestly, people will walk freely without any problem.
Maybe you hide
Uh,
it.
so possibly, you need to look into those heavenly revelations to make the paper more user friendly. So, which brings us to the issue of methodology. I think we should encourage ourselves to go beyond our disciplinary silos, right? Like we said, the world is going multidisciplinary. If we are able to borrow from other disciplines to enhance the structure and quality of our work, I think it will go a long way in enhancing what we do. And finally, to round up, when the work is done properly, and I'm sorry, finally, I also believe, I agree with Prof, who said that CAO is not representative enough. So perhaps we need to do a broader study, incorporate more statistics from other places, and in fact, you may able to begin to compare what is the nature of criminality in CAO to the nature of criminality in other subsets of the urban center. I think it will really enhance the quality of the work. And finally, I promise you, if all of the comments are taken into consideration and the work is improved, certainly, we are going to go beyond this to get it properly published. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My name is Ashiru, and I want to appreciate the presenter for putting on this wonderful work. I have two interests in this work. One, I had a paper published in the journal, Criminology, on the role of vigilance in Vigilance school, because of the government. Secondly, we established the community watch, which is like an vigilante group. I was the person that knows the ambition of establishing it, and I have seen some of the things you mentioned clearly coming out. For example, it's not something new to me, knowing fully that vigilante groups are not big, because we have seen how they have been forced into what we accuse police of doing. They are also engaging in stuff that happen. For example, it's quite funny. The name of our vigilante group is Chinaka, which means representing Java. But after a while, we begin to believe that the police. So we now look at this Chinaka as much as bomb, looking for where there is sugar. So it's quite wonderful. And thank you for putting this out. Notwithstanding, there are some issues I pointed out in the paper. One fundamental is coming from the social science background, our ancestors here. I think discussion of findings is very important in every academic paper, because you put your own findings compared to other findings. Is it something similar? There are divergence extreme wide divergence of data, and also the social sciences backgrounds, issues of anonymity, for example. I have seen throughout the mention the identities. There are so many identifiers of those people. Particularly, this is a sensitive issue, something has to do with security. There is need for you to hide the identity of your informant, especially you might say something that might go against the state or also, understand despite you mention expectations as a mention you apply, and other speakers have already pointed that out. But notwithstanding, you can also critically analyze any interviews, because for an inexperienced researcher like me, I understand there are so many issues of exaggeration, especially when you speak to people who members of that vigilante group. For example, they tend to exaggerate things, but as a researcher, as someone who is an expert in that area, you can as well critically analyze the information you got from them. Another thing is some of the findings, for example, watching page 13, you find your key informant saying they lack training, they lack manpower, they lack everything. And like my senior colleague said, it seems like you over sympathize with countries rather than giving like, a critical assessment of the entire vigilante group. What I mean is you have just briefly mentioned some of their inadequacies. Not necessarily addressing whether how much they in these inadequacies shortcomings against their primary responsibility of complementing the services provided by the conventional security agents. These are some of my observations.
Thank you.
Next application. That is, my name is Ashiru. So I wanted to talk of you, particularly those who reflect on line observation. Now, for the top of the lecture, still on the issue of the discussant that the paper is validated because of the first part you say it is mixed, which the quantitative aspect of the data is missing. Having said that, when you look at you might provide a lot of people about this thing, which is commendable. But if you look at the list of the people interviewed, mostly the stakeholders and the them of the views of the people, how constituency is completely neglected. And that is why when we look at our findings, we supposed to have talked about the issue of human rights abuses. It basically should have come from the views of the masses, especially having established that families are self-sponsored. Definitely they must be abusing people
Well, I'm afraid
more distracting if the view of the masses of our constituency has been generated on the table. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very much. Can we? Okay.
Java and in Unison. I have two observations. Before this observation, I want to commend the presenter for doing this putting up empirical work for gathering this. The first is on IFOS observation has to do with kind of conceptual clarification or kind of conceptual review of vigilantism and why the category was set up in the first place. I think to add on or add more value to the paper, it would be nice or it would be good if we don't have the main paper, whether it's actually there. I would like to suggest that we look at the good development on why vigilante groups actually emerged in the first place. Looking at even when the then governor came in, issues relating to castle rustling, you need to take the issue of castle rustling and how non-state actors are actually violating the rights of locals to actually take the issue. And then secondly, it has to do with your findings. I noticed in a particular place, you wrote, you made mention that Catholics have actually succeeded in killing petty crimes like phone snatching and issues related to drugs. I want to draw the attention that issues related to drugs are not actually petty issues, are not actually petty crimes, they are actually issues that deals or serve as a threat to national security. In fact, in some countries like the US, they have what is known as they have actually tagged issues related to drugs as terrorism. They call it narcotic terrorism. So issues related to drugs, even not only, even if not tagging it as a threat to national security, it's also an issue of public health concern. So I would appreciate if you actually look at the graveness of issues related to drugs and then probably take it out, looking at it as a petty crime. Thank you.
Okay, yes, can we please lower the mic now?
Okay, my respected scholars. My name is Suleiman Abdullahi, and I will go straight to the session, sir. Prof, I think from what I'm seeing on the introductory part, that's the introduction, you mentioned that the law establishing the vigilante groups in Nigeria stipulates that vigilante groups should work in collaboration with the police. My question is that is there any existing law, national policy, like legislation or assented law that allows for the establishment of vigilante groups, not state laws, national policy? If that is there, or if that is already established, then we will now not see the reason why they will not be paid their remuneration or their salaries as I told you. Because policy comes with all of this remuneration, condition of service, and the rest of it. Then I think the paper, sir, has neglected one important aspect, which is on the recruitment pattern. Even during colonial rule, there was colonial pattern of recruiting the army, and in post-colonial period there was recruitment pattern too. And in various services up to date, there is a pattern in the recruitment process. So what is the recruitment pattern of the vigilante groups, vigilante group in Kaduna State? Because why I'm saying this is that most of these vigilant personnel of vigilante service are somehow repentant, deviant thoughts, just like what we have in Castilla and the rest. So, you see, we need to know the recruitment pattern. Did you consider that for what? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My one is an observation. When we look at the topic of the paper, the theme, that is Kaduna State Vigilance Service and Crime Mitigation in Kaduna North, 2015 to 2025, our constituency and perspectives. So first of all, I look at the list of informers. All the 15 informers that he interviewed during the course of this paper, none is from Kawo.
You said it, I think you mentioned that.
Most of the informers are from Kanawa. So that's why I say there are two different things. The title of the paper and the content of the paper. The content of the paper is mostly talking about cannabis in Kaduna State. And cannabis is for the entire Kaduna State, not Kawo per se. So as Professor Karinet mentioned, that the paper has to go beyond Kawo. Even from the title, the Kawo constituency should be removed, if I may suggest. That should be Kaduna State Vigilance Service and Crime Mitigation. That is because there is no representation of Kawo in the discussion of the paper. I think from the beginning to the end of the paper, there is no discussion on Kawo Vigilance Service. The Vigilance Service and Kawo are they different from the cannabis in Kaduna? Because cannabis is for the entire Kaduna State.
So what is the specific vigilant group in cow that the presenter is studying? Then what makes cow to be different with the main countries? Then he didn't make mention of the geographical condition of cow. What he presented is issue the location of Kaduna North local government, which cow is part of Kaduna North. So the paper is not talking about cow, it's talking about the entire Kaduna state. That is my own observation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, presenter. My own contribution, we'll take a look at the title. The law establishing capping was in 2016. So I don't know whether 2015 should be take-off period. So we need to review that. Then, based on what you presented, the clarification from the chairman about that campus is like a state security outfit and not the vigilance. And the vigilance there should not be taken to the vigilante service. So you need to understand that. So I've looked at the law establishing campus online. And once you Google it, you can download it and look at it. So, by that law, it appears the state campus is like a franchise operation. Like you have McDonald's, then the person who establishes it, if you want to have a McDonald's in town, you can set it up and go and collect the license and go to McDonald's on your unit also. So communities can set up a vigilante service and then approach caddies, and caddies will now incorporate them into the general caddy. Is that what is obtainable in Kawo? Individual units establish this thing and approach caddies for integration. And then the issue of funding is also very central. I think in one of the budget during the time of verify, I remember I was looking at the budget and I saw other caddies. I think their recurrent expenditure was like 7 million. And I said, even me as a professor, my annual salary is more than what has been appropriated for the whole campus. So how are they going to? But so today when I was sitting here, I said, okay. He talked about them having helots. I know that the helot is in millions. One helot is over 20-30 million.
Over 70.
You know, although then it might have been before this. So I said, okay, maybe the state government has a security board. So from the security board, they can give them hundreds, they can give them more money. And so, to conclude, the campus experience is one that needs to really be studied. From much of what has been said, with respect to the funding, they also offer security services to organizations. Like in Kaduna State University, the Kaduna State government, the Kaduna State University has its own security that is well paid. Maybe Kaduna State University needs to have like 100 security operatives, but they have only 40. If they approach Kaduna State government that we need to balance the 60, Kaduna State will now give them operatives of cadres, 60 operatives of cadres, who will be paid less than 20,000 month. You know, so is that not another form of exploiting human resources? Because if you are a security operative of Kaduna State University, your salary at least will be minimum wage salary. You know, but if Kaduna State government decides that we will not employ more people, we will exploit our youth and send them to castle under the umbrella of Cadbury, and we paying them 20,000. Does that not? It raises a lot of issues. So I think this type of things are the ones that maybe also continue to research on Cadbury. We should also take a look at the exploitation of human resources. Because these people don't work part time. They work the same number of hours. Then at the end of the month, they are paid 20,000 naira. And they are offering the same type of service. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for critical comments on issues that are raised in the presentation. In your response, you need to mention whatever you have noted, what is that key areas to respond to. Or maybe you have the data you need to present on that. Then as some things are reported out, so you need to bring them out. Or just put them for probably your good public paper, you can respond to some of these key areas that are already available in the paper. One is the limited school. How is it not just within you can metropolis, even in Kaduna State outfit. It should reflect the entire Kaduna State geographical zone. So we'll see what's happening for example in the local part, in the south, and the southern part, and see whether there are the beauty of this diversity of population. Okay? So that one is. Then the other one has to do with the methodology. The methodology has to be very clear. Something you claim that is going to be mixed method, apparently, there's nothing from a quantitative angle. We are talking about reduction, for example, which I believe you said was 80%. What is how did that about 80%? So you need to maybe you have the data, quantitative data, you need to present it for you to discuss. Then the other issue has the theory. I mean, for all social sciences, you really cannot have people of this nature without a theoretical basis. We actually this is within the entire framework of knowledge. Okay? Then the other has to do the remuneration of staff. I mean, you pointed out if you are not paid. I mean, imagine this where somebody goes for 8 hours a day, leaves his house, transports himself or herself, and goes around, comes back, and yet, I mean, you're already creating the opportunity for the person to also exploit the others. And the kind of corruption that was taken to the other athletes, they multiply. And then the other one is discussion. I think it's very important. Where you try to harmonize or triangulate your findings compared to other findings in the literature and how your theory actually explains the whole thing. So these are the key areas you need to attend to. And for my own comments, I also make my own comments. And what we have done for the discussion, the paper, is that we have taken the security aspect for granted. We're not even interrogating the security aspect from the Nigerian police to the Arewa, to the Hisba, to the Castelia, or what you have in the what you have as Africa? You need to go beyond just what's happening now and take it from the time of the time. The state itself is the police. Policing is an arm of the executive for creation, and it's meant to protect the regime. It's a regime protection, you know. So when you begin to get recommendations as to what's going to happen, and that's what we want to do at the state police. The police is simply a democratization of the corruption, of the inefficiency of the police at the national level. People, the state governments are doing the police need to answer to us so that we use to achieve our own purpose. I mean, and this is just a replica of the police in the state. The Amoteku in the southwest, the Hisba in Kano State, and other states that have the one in Anambra State. All of those ones are replicas of state police, and they're going to use it to achieve the interest of the powers that be. So we need to look at the political policy. How can it really function? Can these recommendations actually lead us to the promised land? Even if said to carry out all the projects made here, can they really carry out the promised land? So these are some of the complex issues we need to look at beyond what has been discussed here. Maybe in the review of the paper, you may look at the issues that go beyond what is happening now to the political economy of police as a whole and see what is the issue of police, who's in charge of this stuff. Can this recommendation actually change the image of the profession of the police? Thank you very much. There is one issue, as much as you can.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I listened to all the comments and observations. I consider them very valid, all of them, most especially the one done by my close friend and discussant. I think because of time constraint, I have noticed all the observations, most especially on the scope, methodology, remuneration, and other discussions, which I think I have to improve on all this. And as the director said, and other colleagues, senior colleagues here, that there is no perfect work. Whether you like it or not, once you present, comments and observations must be raised, and the paper must be constructively criticized. So I think I don't have much to say or to respond to all the questions here. On the scope, I will do my best, by the grace of God, to improve on the paper on the scope, to capture some part of Kaduna State, not only Cow constituency, because based on the comments made by my senior colleagues, I quite agree with them that the scope should be expanded, which I will do by the grace of God. And on the methodology too, I have said something on the methodology, but not well explored, which I agree with most of the comments made by my senior colleagues and other colleagues here. And somebody asked on whether, due to the absence of remunerations, how can they be effective? This is normal. Even with the remunerations, some of the security agents are not effective. But the only thing is that those are the aim of affairs should improve on this area so that they can reduce the incidence of bribery and corruption. Because once there is no remunerations, what you will expect is corruption. So I think this should be tackled. Government should adequately tackle all these areas, not only to curb this, but to all the security personnel in Nigeria. So even with the salary, the issue of corruption is rampant in Nigeria. So this is something that will hardly be tackled, will hardly be addressed. We have been talking of corruption in every form, but yet it is still within us. So I think we just have to say it, but reducing it is not our own, but to say it on paper. It's in our mind, it's in our blood. We have said it several times in every forum, this issue of corruption, insufficient of allowance of salary, and so on and so forth. Even with the academic staff, we are still suffering from that. Ashiru is battling on all this. So these are issues that is everywhere in our institutions. So I think I don't want to take much of our time. All the comments and observations will be adequately and appropriately responded by the grace of God. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
We are gradually coming to the end of this very rich and very important presentation. The issue of crime and security has become what you call one day ago. Everybody is affected. Even in your how do you want to describe it? Or who that? Or why describe it? In the other way, crime and security. So nowhere is safe. And therefore, if we are all victims in various dimensions, and therefore we will become interested. That's why this paper is highly, very kind. And I want to once again thank the presenter for the effort he has put in. It's a work in progress.
Yes.
And I believe you're going to go beyond this.
I know.
It may even be the beginning of another research. Maybe on the sort of issues that we raised here.
Yes.
Our colleagues here may also take on the same issues and also go beyond what the presenter has made. I want to thank you very much and to thank all of you who have made comments to improve the quality of the paper and help us understand issues of crime and security. Now, like I said, I want to thank Prof here for one of our ancestors. We need to acknowledge that. Thank you very much. And finally, I want to thank the management of the Arewa house. The place that is part of us. I was telling people who are coming in here that in 1967, when the killings were going on that consumed our beloved father, grandfather, and ancestor, in Sadona, I grew up in Badara here. And I can tell you vividly, I can tell the time what was common. I can tell you what was happening at that time. You know Arewa. You know Arewa? Arewa. That was popular. Some people are very young here. But Arewa was very popular. And Arewa was characterized by extortion, by looting. And all this of things. This house was looted. What is looted? Taken away. And so it gives me a lot of concern. I've worked here with George Panashi. We did some work around here. When he was UEC, he identified some of us who will be here every Friday. We come here and some of us will be issues. Friday, Saturday, we go to the area. And therefore, I have some kind of starting for this place. I want to thank Prof. Sani. When the school said that I came for a program here, and the place, I don't know what you agree or not. If you are here before you came, you explain don't have a functional electricity. But you generator now. It's not correct. Because of the heavy bills are not paid. How can a house like this, that is a replica of Arewa, be poorly funded, poorly managed? And that's a challenge with the director. I'm sure you take a number of steps, this amount of time, we invite this seminar series. I used to be able to invite the world to see that indeed this place is functional and actually better than this place than the other way. Please, let us in our various units, talk to people that this place can be properly funded. I want to imagine that the governors of the north will have a monthly allocation to this place so that this place will better money. I'm sure you can make that one. Okay? So I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to chair. When you called me, I said, I know the thing because I knew very gently. Don't mind if I call you my name. I'm not calling director or professor. We are more very close, and he has actually shown a lot of respect for me. As an ancestor, when I went to the department, they said that as one of our ancestors, and they came as one. So I want to thank you, Prof, for giving the honor to chair this occasion, and thank my young colleague here. He's done a good job, and I want to thank you for also being here. Thank you very much, and thank all of you for being here. Thank you for your contribution. I want to thank all of you, my host. They have one or two things to say. Prof.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the kind words, and thank you for shelving your responsibilities in Zaria to come and be here to assist one of your, I know we are many, I'm not even you, one of your boys to see to the success of this. We really thank you, sir. We can't thank you enough. We got you with all of us in our journey, sir. I thank each and every one of us here, starting from Prof. Sani on my side, to Prof. Move for coming here and adding more value to the paper. Actually, it was deliberate. When I asked him to come and be the discussant, I deliberately selected Professor Mube because I know certainly he will add a lot of value, and I think we have seen the value added by him. So thank you very much, Prof. We really appreciate. I won't thank the DD who has been looking at me to thank him. I will not thank him. As a matter of fact, I'm praising him for looking at me. So, Prof, we really appreciate your presence. I think this is about the second or third term that you have been here. We really appreciate it. And I think I'll personally pay you a visit to your office to show my appreciation. And I do hope that we'll continue to interact like this. Like I keep on saying, when they posted me here, I said Arewa House belongs to everybody. So we are just sent here to oversee one or two conduct, but it's for all of us. So, Prof, thank you so very much. We really appreciate it. The staff, these are the staff of Arewa House. They are actually the major stakeholders. We move like them how they is. So I also thank you for your presence. As a matter of fact, I thank those who are not academic staff more than the academic staff. Because the academic staff, this is your responsibility. I don't need to thank you. I only need to encourage you to also make your presentation. Yeah, so I really appreciate your presence. I also appreciate the presence of colleagues from the area commander.
From Kasu. We have people from Kasu. From Kasu. Two of them.
Umar Sani.
Oh, sorry.
Sani.
Ramlat.
So thank you very much from Kasu. Of course, Kasu is part of Arewa House. In fact, you are the closest. You are even closer than Ahmedabele University that is in some of the areas. So thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. So I was on this side. I also want to thank the minister for coming, as well as Madam Usman, and of course, my two colleagues who also share their responsibility in Zaria
My voice.
to join us here. Thank you very much for your presence, and I do hope you continue to have your presence and your comments as well. I hope that when next we are presenting of Vigilante, Abubakar will not tell us about Chinaka and Kaduna. But I think it's really catchy.
Yeah.
It's really catchy. It transforms a Vigilante group into something else. Maybe we can do something about that. Thank you very much for your presence, Prof. We can't thank you enough. I know you were not in Kaduna when you heard about this thing, but you traveled all the way from where you were. Today you are here. Thank you so very much, sir. We do hope that even when you leave, we'll continue to interact and you will continue to lead us to better level. Thank you so very much. I also wish to thank the site for their presence and patience. I hope that we'll continue to also see your presence in gathering like this and everyone, including the babies. Where's the other one? No, the babies, I pray that one day they will be the ones making their presentation by the grace of God. So thank you very much. We have come to the end of this. Finally, I wish to also recognize the effort of the head of research. She's been working tirelessly to get this team also on board, but unfortunately, she's been bedridden. She couldn't come for today's activity. I pray that she recovers very well and fast too. So I congratulate and I praise her efforts for this. Thank you very much. We all go back to our